everybody, good evening and welcome to the United Stand. This is your latest Manchester United news and transfer news as we're talking about Erik ten Hag's transfer targets and a potential massive £200 million transfer fund, which, to be honest, sort of backs up what I've been talking about for a couple of weeks, that Manchester United's transfer fund will be somewhere between 150 and £200 million. Now, that is a lot of money, but I think one of the things I want to get into tonight, we maybe thought we might have had Ten Hag announced by now. I mean, maybe it would be tomorrow, maybe it would be after the match against Arsenal. But we can definitely move towards what the targets are. And we've got a big list that we're going to go through. And I think that even with Alvarez being mentioned today as a potential CDM and Pau Torres mentioned this afternoon, where are we looking at? What are we looking at? And how do we even spend this money? So lots to talk about. Yes, I was live at 7 o'clock by my watch. So if everyone else is saying 7:01, you're wrong. But before we get into that, and, you know, actually, as everybody starts talking about being sharp and on time, the show is sponsored today by Manscaped. Spring has sprung and it's the time to clear the woods or clear the bushes and trust what 4 million men worldwide trust, and that's Manscaped. Time to clear out that winter bush, trim the grass to make the yard look bigger, and use the code United Stand to get 20% off plus free shipping when you click the link in the description. So if you've got a jungle in your pants and you need to clean it up, or you've got a bit of dead wood to show, then the link is in the chat for you to do that and get 20% off with the code United Stand. So what is the Lawnmower 4.0 all about? Well, this is the thing you use to trim down there. It's got a new multifunctional on and off switch, and also it's got a travel lock created for people who like to travel, of course. The ability to turn the LED light spotlight on and off when needed for a more precise shave. It's got a new trimmer which allows adjustable lengths if you want to go really short or not. It's sleek with a two-tone matte finish. It's even got a hot logo Manscaped sign on it, which is very fancy. And of course, its wireless charging system uses electromagnetic induction, which can lead to a longer battery life, which is fantastic. It can also lead to a longer something else when you trim the grass, if you know what I mean. Along the side of the Lawnmower 4.0, you can get the Performance Package, where you get the Weed Whacker, the Crop Preserver, the Crop Reviver, very comfy boxer shorts, and a travel bag, which is actually really useful. And because Manscaped care about everyone that watches the United Stand, as I said, you can get 20% off and free worldwide shipping when you use the code United Stand at checkout. In fact, if you click the link in the video description, it should automatically knock it off for you when you select your items on their website. As I say, fantastic comments, fantastic articles, fantastic products by Manscaped. I use it a lot. Well, no, I say a lot. I mean, it takes a bit of time for it to grow, but yeah, I'm not talking about my hair. Anyway, links in the video description. United Stand, code, 20% off, free ship, worldwide shipping. Thanks very much to Manscaped. I have a lot of fun with Manscaped, really. It's you can also scan the QR code. If you've got your phone, just turn your camera on, hold it up against the QR code, which is what I'm doing now, and yeah, takes you straight to the website. Fantastic, very, very clever. Yeah, I enjoy the Manscaped integration. It's just low-level humour, which is what I'm great at. Anyway, let's get into the show. Nicholas says, Mirror saying that United want to sign Kane and Rice and we have £200 million to spend. Welcome to 2022. It's interesting that you start off with that, Nicholas, because the show is not going to be about the Daily Mirror article, but I'm more than happy to bring it in because I think there's elements of truth in there, but it's a good thing to start off with, because what I want to do on this show is sort of talk about what we're likely to spend and who we're likely to look at, because I think the interesting thing with Man United's transfer window, now that we've got Erik ten Hag, is that we know we're going to sign players, and we saw last night against Liverpool that we desperately need half a team at least this summer, but nobody's got a bloody clue who we're going to sign. So I'm going to give you some names, and from those names, I would say we're going to sign 3 or 4 of these players. But let's start off with this article from the Mirror. So what they're saying is that Manchester United have got a £200 million war chest for Erik ten Hag. I would move it down a little bit, and I'd say 150 to 200 million. I think we can go to 200 million, but we'd have to sell a few players to get that. I think our budget's about 100, and we'll make about another 100 in sales if we're lucky. So I think 150 to 200 million is realistic. Now, they are mentioning Harry Kane and Declan Rice. I disagree with that. I don't think Manchester United are looking at Harry Kane and Declan Rice, and I don't think they should be looking at Harry Kane and Declan Rice, because at the end of the day, that's the same thing we've been doing for 9 years. We go on Football Manager, we need someone to sign, we put the UK filter in, and we just chuck the full budget in, and they'll go Rice, Kane, and we'll go and buy them. It's what we did with Maguire and Wan-Bissaka. But it also goes on to say that there are some players that United are looking to move on. Now we know, obviously, Paul Pogba, Cavani, Lingard, Mata, Matic, they're gone. There's nothing we can do about that. But they also go on to say Rashford, Wan-Bissaka, Martial, Telles, Jones, Bailly and Henderson are all potential players that leave this summer. I don't for one second think that Marcus Rashford's going to go. Do I think he should go? I'm more than happy to have the debate, but it's not down to me or you to have that debate. I think you could argue that it's good for him to go. I think I was reading somebody today, I think it was Phil Brown was saying it, that how a Manchester United player plays against Liverpool is different to how they play against any other team. And what he meant was that when you play against Liverpool, it's a mark. It's a benchmark. You play them twice a season. You play them at Anfield once, unless you play them in the Cup. And how you perform in that is really a good gauge of what you are as a Man United player. Because everyone can have a bad game away to Southampton or at home to Norwich, and anyone can. I've seen Scholesy do it. Like, it can happen. But when you play in Liverpool, you can have a bad game, but you can't not put any effort in. And I think some of these lads have played Liverpool twice this season and basically jogged around. The equivalent of walking around with your hands on your hips. Completely unforgivable. And I think some of these lads have done so. I mean, look, Hannibal Mabry didn't play particularly well, but put an effort in and put a shift in, and he's come out of that with a positive. That's just by putting an effort in. McTominay must be gutted he's injured, because he could have put a tackle in and people would have said, well, at least he tries. And that's how bad everyone was last night, because they didn't try. So I think when you're talking about the Marcus Rashfords of this world, the problem he's got is I believe he's got a future at United. I believe he can be a decent player, but I can't believe the amount of effort he's put in this season. I think it's abysmal. So it might be better for him to go. I mean, in some ways, I'd respect it if he put in a transfer request. I don't think he will. I think he knows his bread is well and truly well buttered at Manchester United. He's clearly very, very big about his social media following off the pitch. And leaving Manchester United will damage that. It will damage brand Rashford to leave United. So I think it was a load of bullshit when it was being put out there that, you know, the phone was ringing off and he's got loads of offers. I think ultimately they just want the new contract for United. And what I would say to United is, as much as I like Rashford, if you're thinking about handing him a new contract this summer, you're a bloody disgrace. He don't deserve a new contract. And you can go, well, he'll run his contract down. Well, sell him this summer then. Sell him in the summer. Don't let him run his contract down, but don't give him a new contract. That would be an absolute farce. What are you going to hand him a new contract on? It's been rubbish for 2 years. United's angle will be, but we've got to protect the value of the player because he's only got 2 years left on his contract and we don't want him to go into the last year. But you can't hand a new contract out to somebody who's played like that for the last 2 years. This is going to be a real acid test this summer, because if you want to hand out contracts to people who aren't playing well, what's that all about? So I don't think Rashford will go because I don't think he wants to go, and I don't think United want to sell him. Martial obviously could go. Telles is interesting. I mean, when you're not getting picked at left back when the left back's injured, there's a question mark about Telles, and I think there has to be a question mark about Telles. And then Bailly and Jones, yes, I think they will go. But Aaron Wan-Bissaka, I mean, who's going to buy him? Mark, we need a midfielder to take Pogba's place, says Aston. We're going to talk about targets in a minute, but just talking about the players that might potentially go, according to this article in the Mirror. I mean, Wan-Bissaka for me is like Harry Maguire. There is a player there. It's not a Man United player. Even on their best day, they're not Man United players. I think that's been proven over the last 2 years. But the problem is we spent so much money on them. Who's going to buy them? I mean, Newcastle... Look, if I was Everton, I think Harry Maguire might be a decent player for you. You do play quite a deep line at times. But I just don't think anyone's going to make any move for them. How you eventually were Ollie out and helped create a louder voice. Can you please consider raising the conversation to get Maguire out now, says Amit. But I want Maguire out. I think everybody wants him out. Like, unfortunately for him, him and a few others symbolise what's wrong with his football club, and he ain't good enough. But you know, what do you want me or anyone else to say? I think he's. I think I'm still very angry about last night. I'm still very angry about the last few weeks. But I can only keep saying what I've been saying. If I look at it from a completely and utter pragmatic point of view, how are we going to play with two centre backs and a high line and a possession-based style of football with the centre-back who only plays well in a deep line, in a back five, in counter-attacking football? It doesn't suit the way we want to play. I think it's a shame that after last night, a lot of people are thinking Hannibal is just a passion merchant when he's actually a very technical player, says Joshua. Yes, but I wouldn't take that as a negative, Joshua. I think at the end of the day, Hannibal probably showed a side to his game that most people who know a lot about him didn't really didn't really think about. I mean, he's not that. Like you say, he's a very technical player. How are we so divided as fans? Some are hating on De Gea after last night, say we would have won with a modern goalkeeper. What does that even mean? David De Gea is a legend, says Catherine. Well, that's news to me, Catherine. I've not heard anybody say anything about that, like that about David De Gea. And if they are saying that, they're idiots. I mean, you're just a bloody idiot, to be honest. Let's move on. Are you excited by Erik ten Hag seeing Donnie Van Der Beek as a key player, says Salah Ahmed? Well, look, Donnie Van Der Beek is a player that we keep coming back to in relation to Erik ten Hag. I'll keep it blunt and short because I want to talk about a few other things. But I think in relation to Donnie Van Der Beek, effectively he is a new signing. And I hate that cliche, but he is a new signing because he's been an absolute waste of time under Solskjaer, who bought him and then didn't use him. But the great thing is he's now going to be playing under a manager that he's had success with. So if Ten Hag can't get the best out of Donny, then nobody can. I think the interesting thing is he's going to be, will he start him? And, I'm a big fan of Bruno, but if he benches Bruno to give Donny a run of games, I ain't got a problem with it. I think Ten Hag has to be allowed to do what Ten Hag wants to do. That's the bottom line, isn't it? So, anyway, let's go through this because I think that where people are getting a little bit confused at the moment is, and look, apologies, the show's not at 8 o'clock tonight. The show's not at 8 o'clock tonight because I'm doing a watch-along for Arsenal versus Chelsea. For a number of reasons, really. Not because I think we're in a top four race, but because we're playing Arsenal on Saturday. And so, and it's a big game. So I will be on That's Football for the kickoff at 7:45 on That's Football. So we will be live until just before then here on the United Stand. So make sure you smash a like and subscribe, bottom right-hand corner. But with Erik ten Hag coming into the team, we're fully aware that we want a centre-back, we need a midfielder, we need a striker. And I thought it'd be very interesting to now we're on the verge of Erik ten Hag being announced officially, and it could happen any minute. It could happen tomorrow, it could happen on Monday. I don't know when United are planning on doing it, to be honest, but they're ready to go. They're ready to do it, and I think Ajax are ready for us to do it. I think the interesting thing is, who are we going to sign? And when you look at the positions, who are we most likely to sign? Now, for me, the most priority position is the centre defensive midfielder, and in that position, we actually have the most viable options. I think when you think about the striker option, I think there's only one at the moment that we're aware of. When you talk about centre back, there's probably two or three. When you talk about wide players, there's probably one or two. But in the midfield, we actually are linked to quite a lot of players. Out, Henderson, Aaron Wan-Bissaka, Lindelof, Jones, McFred, Martial, Rashford, and Dumfries, Timber, Akanji, Bissouma, Phillips, Maddison, and Nunez, says Desiree. That's a dream. That's a fantasy. You've got to have a dream, but that is a fantasy, mate. We won't be doing that much. Anyway, I'm surprised you'd keep Maguire. Mark, you think if we win Arsenal, we're still in a top four race, says Aston Walker? Well, we can talk about that on the preview tomorrow. I think, to be honest, we need to see what Arsenal do tonight first before we start thinking about what we're in. If Arsenal get a result tonight, then, we're in a Europa League race as far as I'm concerned. But look, in relation to the midfield, I think where we are at the moment with the midfield is that Declan Rice is definitely under consideration still. Tchouaméni, I hope, is under consideration. Calvin Phillips is under consideration. Neves is under consideration as well. And then you can probably add in Alvarez from Ajax. So there's 5 viable centre defensive midfield options at the moment that United appear to be looking at. Calvin Phillips, Declan Rice, Tchouaméni, Ruben Neves and Alvarez at Ajax. And I wouldn't be surprised if we're going to get one of those players. Who it's going to be, I don't know. I really don't know. I think United really do want Declan Rice, and I don't think Erik ten Hag will say, I don't want Declan Rice. I think he is a midfielder across Europe that people will know about, and Ajax have got a fantastic scouting system. They always have done, so they will know about Declan Rice. They will know about Tonali. They will know about players from other leagues. So I don't think Erik ten Hag would be saying no to Declan Rice. The issue United have got there is that, one, the price is going to take up a lot of money, and the second point is that in the industry, most people just expect him to go to Chelsea. That doesn't mean he will go to Chelsea, but everyone knows he wants to go to Chelsea. Everyone knows Chelsea need a CDM. So, and also, does Declan Rice want to come to Man United and play in the Europa League when he could stay at West Ham and play in the Champions League? So I think for Declan Rice to leave West Ham, he's got to be able to sell it in a way that I'm going to go somewhere that it's at least as good. At least if Chelsea are in the Champions League, which they will be, and West Ham are in the Champions League, you can say, well, look, Chelsea are in the Champions League. But if he leaves West Ham to come to United and take a step down, it's a little bit of a weird one. What's the difference in quality between Rashford and Lingard? Both are wildly inconsistent and entitled without good reason. It's not funny that Marcus gets a chance but not Jesse. Contract length, I suppose, is the and also value. The value of Marcus Rashford to Manchester United compared to Jesse Lingard is huge. Like you say, there is a contract there. He has a value, but his socials are bigger. He's more marketable. He's younger. Lingard's 29. Marcus Rashford's 24, 25. So we are a business, and effectively in relation to their footballing capabilities over the last year, Lingard's the better player. Not in a United shirt, but Lingard at West Ham last year was one of the best players in the league. Lingard's had more good games than Rashford over the last year, but admittedly in a West Ham shirt. The difference is that United have become a franchise, have become a business instead of a football club, and Lingard's value is down here compared to Rashford's up here. But in footballing ability, it's probably more like that. But, the value of a player is not what they are as a player, it's what they are as an asset. Harry Maguire is way more... Well, Harry Maguire and Aaron Wan-Bissaka are worth way more to Manchester United than Delo and Bailly. Are Delo and Bailly better than Wan-Bissaka and Maguire? Well, open the debate up. But on the asset sheet, Maguire and Wan-Bissaka are worth way more to Manchester United Football Club than them two because of what we've paid them and what we do pay them and the contracts that they're on. Fletcher and Maguire need to go, says M. Parker. We can't have a subpar captain dragging morale down, and we need a CDM, otherwise Ten Hag will achieve nothing. Well, we will buy a CDM, M. Parker. Is Dybala on a free transfer a good idea? No, I don't think he is, Nicholas. I like Dybala, but I don't think he's the right signing. So I think when we're looking at centre defensive midfielders, I think we're definitely going to be looking at Declan Rice, as hard a deal as it is. Tchouaméni to me just feels unobtainable. I would love us to get Tchouaméni, but I do think he feels a bit unobtainable. And then I actually think where we're going to... I want this to be a bit of a prediction show, actually. In fact, we'll do a poll on this, but I actually want to go through each position and just sort of get your thoughts on it as to who you think we will end up going for. Because I actually believe that we will end up with... well, let's do the poll, actually. Which CDM do you think we're going to end up with out of these lot? Because I think we actually have the identity of our CDM on this list. And it's down to you to see if you agree with me on this. So let me just get Phillips there. Right, there's 4 options there. Go for your vote. I've put Kelvin Phillips, Neves, Declan Rice and Tchouaméni. I think our CDM is going to be one of those 4 players. I don't think we'll go for Lema. I don't think we'll go for Basuma. I don't think we'll go for Alvarez from Ajax. I think Alvarez from Ajax is too risky, by the way. I think he could be a success. On the other hand, I think he could be a failure. So I think our midfielder is going to be either Rice, Neves, Phillips or Tchouaméni. And I actually think it's going to be Neves or Phillips, which worries me a little bit because they're very easy to analyse because they both played in the Premier League and their stats don't stack up to Declan Rice. They're quite a long way off Declan Rice. So even possibly Basuma would be a better signing, but they would be making a step up. I don't know who I'd prefer out of Neves or... Calvin Phillips, to be honest with you, but I think we will end up with one of those two. I would love to get Tchouaméni. I think he befits what United want to be. I don't think we'll get Declan Rice, but it's interesting in the poll actually. Most of you lot are saying 40% Tchouaméni. I think we will end up with one of those 4, and I just think it'll be Phillips or Neves, but we'll have to wait and see what happens with that. There are other options, of course. I think United's priority is Declan Rice. It's very difficult. I think Tchouaméni will be very difficult to get, full stop, and I think we'll be left with 3rd or 4th options, which sometimes you have to go for because we have to get somebody. I'd like to see us looking at Palhinha from Portugal. I'd like to see us looking at something a little bit different, but I think we will end up with Neves or Calvin Phillips. In relation to the striker position, it's very boring, but I've said it before. I don't know what we're going to do beyond Darwin Núñez. I don't know who else we're looking at. It's been very... We all know we need a striker, but in the midfield position, I know loads of people that United are looking at, and we've just been through some of them there. But in the striking position, if we don't get Darwin Núñez, which I think could be difficult, I've got no idea who we're going to go for. Because Harry Kane's been mentioned, but again, Spurs could be in the top 4 in the Champions League with Conte as their manager. Why would he leave? And also, why would you spend £100 million on a 29-year-old? So I don't think Harry Kane's really that viable at all. Darwin Núñez is viable, but I just don't know whether we're going to go for him. It's a shame that we didn't get our arse into gear, because I look at some of the deals that Dortmund are doing again. Is it Schlotterbeck? I can never pronounce his name as a centre-back, but they're also in for Adeyemi as well. So there are other options there, but I just don't know who we're looking at in relation to strikers, and it's been kept very, very quiet. Maybe Erik ten Hag comes in with some ideas. Maybe you don't even look for a Darwin Núñez. Maybe you go for an Nkunku who can play as a striker but can also play as a 10. Maybe that's the sort of thing that they'll look at as well. But yeah, it's very difficult to know what we're looking at beyond Darwin Núñez as a striker. I just mentioned Nkunku. Antony's definitely a player that Erik ten Hag loves. I think we could get him for 50 million quid, which isn't unreasonable. But Jonathan David, mentioned by Bulo there. I mean, Jonathan David's a good player, but I don't know whether we're looking at him. I think at this stage, where we're basically in the back end of April, we should know a lot of these players that United are looking at. The only reservation I'd have on that is that because the manager's not been brought in yet, the manager's going to have his own ideas. Does the press know what Erik ten Hag's ideas are? And that may be why, when we talk about a striker, we're just guessing at Darwin Núñez. Maybe over the next few weeks, in fact, I predict over the next few weeks, it's going to be very fast-paced, and we're going to get a whole new raft of contenders. And that might happen in the midfield. Look, at the end of the day, I don't. Which CDM do you think will sign? I think it's Tchouameni's got 44%. I think that's which CDM do people want to sign. So it's a bit of a pointless poll, to be honest with you. But I do think things are going to change very, very rapidly, because as soon as Erik ten Hag comes in and people start to get access to the people around him, I think we'll start to get leaks on the players that we're looking at. And also, when Erik ten Hag is talking to the club, we know the club leaks as well. So we'll start to get a better idea of the sort of players that we're going to sign. And I, for one, hope that we're going to... I mean, I would absolutely love it if none of the players we've been mentioning end up being signed. That Erik ten Hag walks in with a clear idea of who he wants at CDM, who he wants as a striker. I mean, I'd love it if we went and bought a striker from, I don't know, Lille, who nobody'd ever heard of, or, you know, Portugal or something like that. But we'll have to wait and see. There is a theory that Núñez has switched his agent to Mendes so he can have his access to United. It's an easy deal to make with Mendes involved, says Dan. Yeah, well, before we move on from the striker, the only name I can offer up at the moment is Darwin Núñez. I don't think we're in for Harry Kane. And beyond Darwin Núñez, I've got no bloody idea, to be honest with you. The centre-back is very interesting. Obviously, we did a show this afternoon talking about Pau Torres. That interest, for whatever reason, is legitimate. Manchester United and Pau Torres, it's not just paper talk. There is a legitimate story there. Now, is that story because the agent is trying to drum up some interest from Real Madrid? Look, let's put our hands up. That can happen. Is that interest being drummed up because United desperately want a centre-back? Maybe. Maybe Erik ten Hag and Ralf Rangnick has said to Manchester United, we need a left-footed centre-back to play the way we want to play. Remember, Ralf Rangnick has hinted at this, that you've got to buy players that suit your system. Well, having a left-footed left-back is great. Having a right-footed right-back is essential. Having a left-sided centre-back who's left-footed is useful if you want to be a ball-playing footballing team. So maybe that's been... Who is the best left-sided centre-back, left-footed left-sided centre-back that's available at the moment? Pau Torres is probably the best. I don't know what's happened with Badiashile at Monaco. He was a player, was it 2 years ago? I think he's left-footed that we were looking at, but... Again, maybe he comes back into the equation. Maybe somebody else comes back into the equation. But Pau Torres is interesting. Timber, if you speak to Ajax fans, they love Timber. He's one of their best players. So you can't ignore that. And I think that what's really important is, if you're going to sign the Ajax manager, one of the benefits of Ajax being good is that surely you say to the manager, which player do you want to bring with you from Ajax? Let's bring the best one or two. So I hope that United are doing that, because Ajax have got a very, very good relationship with United, and these players are going to want to leave anyway. And if they're going to leave, we may as well take one or two. Our centre-backs partnership could have been Varane and Koulibaly if the media didn't say 65 million was too much, but somehow justified the fridge, says Zach. And sad to see what this club has become. My granddad would have been turning in his grave if we didn't get him cremated, says Booba. Okay, I don't know whether that was meant to be a joke or not, but rest in peace to your granddad. Yeah, but centre-back I think has to happen. Eric Bailly will leave. Phil Jones has to leave. Samurai, thank you very much for the super chat. Yeah, he has to leave. And we just what we desperately need is a fast centre back. And I don't think that Twan Sebi really is going to cut the mustard, to be honest with you. Mark, honestly, it looks like you want to copy exactly how Liverpool do their recruitments. We aren't Liverpool, says Devon K. Well, I think Devon makes a good point there. But that sort of shallow-minded approach is why we fail. If you look at Manchester United, and Ben says if Maguire leaves, realistically, where would he go? Exactly, he ain't going to go anywhere. He's on 200 grand a week. He's 2 years into a 6-year contract. We're stuck with Maguire. And if you're not happy about that, yeah, I'm not happy with Maguire, but look at Matt Judge. Look at Ed Woodward. They give him a 5 or 6 year deal on 200 grand a week. We are well and truly stuck with him. But going back to what Devon said there about looking at Liverpool, we shouldn't be looking at Liverpool. But this is what we've tried to do for 9 years. No, let's not look at anybody else. Let's not look at City. Let's not look at Ajax. Let's not look at Bayern Munich. Let's not look at Liverpool. Let's go down the DNA route. The DNA. You know, let's go down the DNA. Let's listen to all these legends of the past on how Man United are great. And let's waste £1.2 billion on players that are worth next to nothing now. Let's recruit players and let's recruit staff who used to be at the club. Let's do it the United way and all this shit. And football's moved on. We do need to learn from Liverpool, because actually Liverpool are the biggest failure in Premier League history as a big club, and then they turned it into success. Liverpool were approaching 30 years without a Premier League title. They had never won a Premier League title. So, and why did Liverpool take so long? Because they kept looking to the past. They kept trying to do things the way they did in the 80s and the 70s. And then they went, no, we're not going to do that. We're not going to do that, actually. We're going to bring in a manager from Germany who is one of the most exciting managers in the world at the moment, who wants to do things his way and believes in his way. And they brought him in. And he's the closest thing in the Premier League to Sir Alex Ferguson. He gets his fullbacks forward. He gets people into the box. He plays a high line. He plays risk-taking football. He runs the club like the Don. So United can learn a lot from Liverpool. But I think Liverpool learnt a lot from Manchester United. And there's nothing wrong with that. The rivalry's there. But to be honest with you, if you are in a rivalry, if you're waking up at night pissed off that your rival's better than you, do you just go, don't worry about it, you'll be fine? Or do you analyse what that rival's doing and think, how can I do it better? Or what are they doing that's working that we can maybe replicate and do better? So, look, there's nothing wrong with looking at Liverpool at the moment. And the one area, right, there's loads of areas I'd look at Liverpool, but I think one of the areas that United desperately need to look at, and we've been talking about this for years, and I've always been in admiration about Liverpool from very early on. They call it like the Moneyball system, don't they? They analyse a transfer to ridiculous levels. I was told by a Liverpool fan, Kamara or Coop Miners for CDM, look out for Botman at centre-back, says Humphrey. And if anything, Liverpool would be a good model to follow, says Adrian. But look, I've said this before, but to anybody who didn't hear me say it before, I was told by someone very close to Liverpool that when they were after, remember that summer they were after Fekir, and he went from France to, I think he ended up going to Portugal. Maybe it was La Liga. He was very much coming to Liverpool. And I was told the reason Liverpool didn't buy him is because he had a knee operation, and the technique they used was one that could potentially have problems later on. There's nothing wrong with his knee. Absolutely nothing wrong with his knee. But and I think since then it's been proven there was nothing wrong with his knee. But the technique they used was one that Liverpool weren't completely happy with. So they avoided the deal. And they have this approach to transfers, Liverpool, a bit like the Moneyball with Brad Pitt, if you've ever seen the film, where they crunch the numbers and the stats and everything like that, and they'll look for a player that, you know, may not be obvious, but is doing something really, really good. And they'll see how they fit into the system that Klopp wants to play. And this is why Liverpool have so many hits, because They analyse it so much around what Klopp needs and injuries and fitness. And for a long time as well, remembering Liverpool's first couple of years with Klopp, when they were successful, not their first couple of years, but when they got really successful, I used to see Liverpool and I'd go, well, it won't last because they haven't got a backup for Van Dijk, they haven't got a backup for Mane, they haven't got a backup for Salah. They're just reliant on those players and they've got no backup, but they never got injured. That wasn't by chance. That was because when they were recruiting these players, they were recruiting players that can play 90% of your games every year. And that is a big thing. If you've got a player like Rafael Varane or Cavani at Man United, they're great players if they're playing 90% of your games. But if they're playing 20% of your games or 50% of your games, they're no good. Man United need to work on this. We need to be buying players that are going to suit our system, that are going to be suitable for our level that we want to play at, that we can improve and take them to a higher level, and that can play nearly every week. And we've been terrible at this for the last 9 years. Would you take Isco on a free to replace Pogba, says Mandy? I don't want any frees. I don't want any cast-offs. I don't want any hand-me-downs. I don't want any sloppy seconds. That is not the way forward for Manchester United. I think if you're Man City, or you're Bayern Munich, or you're Liverpool, or you're Real Madrid, or you're Barcelona maybe, or you're PSG, when you're a club that you know is going to fight for your title every year, you can afford to take a risk on a player. We can't afford to take any risks. We've got too many danger zones we've got too many toxic players in our team already. We cannot afford to take any more risks. And I go back to what I said a couple of minutes ago. Our recruitment's got to be absolutely nailed on. You've got to go into that meeting with the manager and the recruitment team. And when you put a player forward, if I'm on that panel talking about transfers and somebody comes in and says, Ousmane Dembele, he'd be a great player and he's free, I'm going to put my hand up and go, he's a fantastic player. Tell me about his transfer. Tell me about his injury record over the last 3 years. Yeah, but over the last 3 months, he's been all right. Yeah, okay, we sign him. By Christmas, he's out for another 2 months with a hamstring injury, and I'm going to smack you round the face with this bit of paper where I'm telling you now he's got loads of injury records. We can't take that risk. Yeah, but he might go to Man City and be brilliant. Let them take the risk because they can afford the risk. I can't afford the risk. Find me a winger who's going to play 90% of our games over the next 3 years. That's what we need. We can't be taking risks. We can't be doing that. Harry Kane for 120 million. What about him? He's one of the best strikers in the world. Yeah. How old is he? 29 in the summer. Yeah. Okay. How many injuries has he had in the last 3 years? Well, he's been all right this season. Okay, what about the season before that? Yeah, he had a couple of injuries where he was out for about 10 games. Yeah, I ain't spending 120 million pounds. I'm not spending over 50% of my budget on a striker who's 29 and over the last 3 years has had a few injuries. I ain't doing it. It's not worth it. I would rather buy someone who's 50 million, 22, who's going to play 90% of our games over the next 3 years. We need players on the pitch. That's what we need. Jose put World Cup winner Bastian in the under-23s. Maguire should be chucked into the under-23s. SB says, let him find his new club. Ain't going anywhere, mate. Mark, with full support for the board, how many seasons transfer windows would you give Ten Hag to turn the club around, says Joel. It's going to get toxic, Joel. There's going to be problems. There's going to be players at that club who are still at the club now who are troublemakers. I mean, imagine this. Pick one of the players from last night who are troublemakers in your mind, right? They will be here next year. They're sat on the bench. Do you think they're sat on the bench watching their international career disappear, watching their Man United career disappear? Do you think they're going to be sat there with a big smile on their face, watching the team get better and better without them? There'll be a toxic element that Ten Hag has got to deal with next season. How he deals with them is going to be really interesting to observe. Do you take these players out of the club that can't be sold and sit them on the bench? Or do you put them in the team and try and make them work, even though we all know that they won't work? So it's a very difficult thing for Erik Ten Hag to deal with. Now, the easiest solution is that when he's had his interview and the board say, look, such and such cost us a lot of money, no one wants to buy him, fans don't really rate him, what do you think? If Ten Hag said to them, I believe I can make them play better, then that's going to be very interesting. I love David. He's having an outstanding season. Would this not be the best time to sell and cover the loss of 80 and 50 million? Just a thought, says Kartik. And I'd rather have 4 or 5 quality signings than Harry Kane, says Bubba. And we have to get out of the mindset of chasing short-term success and build a structure designed for long-term success, says Stephen. Absolutely, exactly. People stop hoping for big names like Isco, Dybala or Rice. They're either past it or too expensive. We need well-scouted hidden talents, says Noah. I think that's a great point as well, because it's not just some of our players that need kicking out or need to improve. It's also our fan base. I'm not saying we need to kick some of our fans out. I mean, at the end of the day, if you're a United fan, you're a United fan. I'm not one of those people who starts telling people who's a better fan or who shouldn't be a fan or whatever like that. But I do think that either we need to learn as a fan base or we're going to have problems, because I still think that we are a fan base that ultimately is easily led, and we've been played over the last 9 years by this ownership who, we've got an angry fan base. Let's buy a shirt seller. We've got a fan base that's a bit worried that we're not winning trophies. Let's buy a shirt seller. That's always been the cycle at United. Spend a bit of money on a shirt seller, they'll shut up, they'll buy the shirt, and then by Christmas they'll be pissed off, but we've got another few months to buy somebody else. We need to think differently, because we can't afford to buy shirt sellers anymore. We need to buy a team that's going to play in a way that we want to play, that's going to be part of a rebuild that's going to take 2 or 3 years. If you bring Dybala in on a free, he's going to want a lot of money. And he might not work. And if he doesn't work, you're stuck with another Alexis Sanchez, another Harry Maguire. People that you have to keep, no matter what their impact on the team is. You have to keep them. Bruno Fernandes is a problem at United now. I don't think he will be a problem, but we've just handed him a 5-year deal on over 200 grand a week. What if Erik ten Hag comes in and says, he doesn't suit my system, I can't fit him in? The club are going to go, but we've just given him a massive contract. We literally could have sold him for 60 million. Real Madrid would have bought him for 60 million. We had people inquiring about him. No one's going to buy him when he's on the bench. Well, you fucking gave him the contract. See what I mean? These are the problems that we're going to have to find solutions to over the next year or two. Because we've got a number of players that might not work under Erik ten Hag. And if they don't work, they're so bloody expensive. Who's going to buy them? And then if they're stuck here, you end up with what we've had with Eric Bailly, Jesse Lingard, Dean Henderson, players who are not playing, are not happy, and might be wandering off with their mouth, letting things out. Some people would say, well, I don't blame them, but you can't have these players just sat on the periphery watching their careers die. And we've got a few more players that even when Bailly's gone, Henderson's gone, Mata's gone, Matic is gone, Pogba's gone, Cavani's gone, Lingard's gone. That gets rid of a lot of players that have not been playing and aren't happy. But we might be creating a few more who aren't going to go anytime soon. Mark, do you think you could do better than Maguire? Says Aston. No. Come on. I mean, the thing is, this is our club. We love our club and we're very passionate about our club. Yes. But these are professional footballers. It's just what level they're at. They've worked very hard. I mean, I played football at a half-decent level when I was 15, 16. I did trials and stuff, and it's bloody competitive. It's very hard work. There's a lot of knobheads, and they believe they're so good and they're competitive, and it's a cutthroat world trying to be a footballer. So I respect anybody who makes it. If they've made it, they've made it. Nobody's just parachuted them in, no matter how bad they might be in a United shirt. They've worked very hard to get where they are from a very young age, and you've got to respect that. The problem is we've created monsters. They've ended up at Man United. They believe the hype. They believe they're better than they are, and we've basically over-promoted people. And you'll see this in your normal life, where sometimes you're in a job and your supervisor, you're like, how have they got that job? How did they end up in a position where they're telling people what to do when they don't know what to do themselves? And you'll see this throughout your whole life. And that's the equivalent of what's happened at Manchester United. We've over-promoted players. We don't over-promote a player because you can't make him a supervisor. You can make him a captain, I suppose. But you over-promote a player by paying them way too much money to come to our club and then be stuck at this club on massive money, on massive contracts, and they believe they're a Man United player, but they were never good enough in the first place. That's where we've gone wrong. We've over-promoted too many players. They are professional footballers, and you've got to respect the fact the journey they've been on. But I could give you a name, and you can tell me what level do you think they play at. So David De Gea, for me, is one of the world's best goalkeepers. You could imagine him playing in PSG or wherever. Dalot, I don't know about Dalot, really. Is he good enough to play for Everton? Is he good enough to play for Man United? Should he be back at Porto? Wan-Bissaka? Would he get a place at Palace anymore? You know, was that his level? I don't know. He's certainly not a Man United right back, is he? Lindelof, I think Lindelof could play for an Everton, a Southampton, maybe even, you know, I don't think he'd start for an Arsenal at the moment. I think he's a decent centre-back. I don't know whether he should be starting for a top 4 team. Varane, I still think Varane would be playing first-choice football for Real Madrid. He's just got an injury problems. Maguire, I think he's a Burnley defender. I think he plays in a back 5 for an Everton, but I don't think he's anything better than that. Luke Shaw, Luke Shaw probably wouldn't start for Chelsea, Man City or Liverpool. Certainly think he'd be fancying himself playing in a 4th place team like Man United. So yeah, I ain't got a problem with Luke Shaw. McTominay and Fred, God knows, bench players at United. Bruno, on his best, could be a squad player for a Barcelona or a Real Madrid. On his worst, he isn't. Rashford, got no idea. It's been so long since we've seen him good. Ronaldo, stick him up front for any team if you're going to provide him with service. Jaden Sancho, again, I think he is the player that would be a bench player for Liverpool, with the potential to become a first team player. And obviously there's a lot of other players, but that's almost a show in itself. Where do these players end up? I actually think that's quite a good show to do. What is their actual level? Because when you go through it, a lot of them just aren't Man United players. And yet you look at their wage and you go, well, you're being paid more than Liverpool players are being paid. We're paying players that aren't Man United players more money than players that are going to win the Champions League, that are going to win the Premier League. How many signings will we make this summer? From Ralph's comments yesterday post-match, says Ram. 4 or 5. I've just realised it's 42 minutes past 7. They're kicking off in 3 minutes. I need to get over to That's Football. Thanks everyone for watching. Make sure you scan your QR code to get your Manscaped products and use the code UNITEDSTAN. 20% off and free worldwide shipping. Thanks everyone for watching. Make sure you smash a like on the video. I'm going to watch Arsenal versus Chelsea. It's on That's Football. Watch along. Join me over there. I'll be live in 2 minutes. And make sure you join the Members Club. We've got a new video coming out for you exclusively tomorrow on the Members Club. And we're back on here at 9:30 tomorrow, not 10 o'clock. 9:30 tomorrow morning with Paul Ince. It'll be very interesting to see what he's got to say. Got some good questions for him. I'll see you on That's Football.